John.
Hello, welcome to YCFT. We recently went to Venice. So we decided, because you in particular are having some Venice blues, aren't you? So you wanted to pick a movie set in Venice. And we already did one of those last year with A Haunted in Venice.
Yes.
So we got engaged in Venice. This is the announcement to you guys. This movie is not a nice movie set in Venice, though.
No, it's not.
You couldn't have picked anything more cheerful.
I'm not really aware of like any other, certainly not a movie that's as famous as this one.
I've also been struggling to get the name of this one right.
Yes.
Just how in our Dark Shadows one, I struggled with the difference between a soap opera and a sitcom, and people like to point that out. I'm not a smart person, okay? Let me...
You are a smart one.
Right. So we are looking at Don't Look Now.
Yes.
God, that was so difficult. I've been calling it Don't Look Up.
Exactly. Not to be confused with that movie.
I've not even seen that movie. So it was released in 1973 and stars Donald Sutherland and...
Julie Christie.
Julie Christie. Was directed by...
Nicolas Roeg.
Have you read the short story that this is based on?
I have not. I would really like to. I am a huge fan of Daphne du Maurier. Absolutely adore her stuff. This is a short story. It's not a full-on novel. And I've always been curious about checking it out. But I guess for reasons we'll get into, I've never quite committed to reading the short story and fully tracking it down. But from what I understand, this movie is very faithful to the short story. And Daphne du Maurier herself wrote a letter to Roeg after the movie was released, basically saying, look, thank you for doing such a faithful adaptation. So she was a fan of the movie.
That's good. Our main characters are John and Laura. They have a family, they have 2 children, they're working in their house, which is by a lake, and the opening of this movie is extremely famous. We are going to spoil this movie because we have to talk about it. The opening of this is so famous. I think you even mentioned it when we did Shutter Island, because there's a particular scene in that which is basically like side by side, it's a mirror of it. It's 100% was inspired by this one.
Yeah, I would struggle to think otherwise or believe otherwise.
It opens with Christine, their daughter, drowning. Very famously wearing a red raincoat. And Donald Sutherland's performance in this whole movie, it's hard to watch because it's painful.
It's tough, isn't it?
It's the noises that you make is so
guttural
raw.
And just total anguish personified.
It's a hard opening.
It is.
This one. So the rest of the film is basically they then ship their other child off the boarding school.
Yeah, that's how they deal with that.
That's how they do that. And he takes a job. He's an architect, so he takes a job renovating a church in Venice.
Yeah.
So they basically go to rebuild their life in the most romantic city in the world.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the people of Venice were worried about them because usually Venice in movies is a romantic place, occasionally a place for action. This film does not show it that way. There's a serial killer in Venice. We see there's bodies coming out of the water. We see a lot of rats. We see a lot of people peering out of windows suspiciously.
Yeah.
I will give this film props for that. I've never seen Venice shown in this way.
Well,
and I really, really liked it.
Yeah, and to top it all off, such a simple thing, but this is not Venice in July. This is Venice in bleak midwinter, and Venice is absolutely stunning all year round, and we can testify to that. But it's not how you typically see Venice. This is cold, and this is mysterious, and this is
fog.
Yeah. This is kind of like the antithesis of what you usually picture when you think of Venice in your mind.
So I will always give it props for that. And this film is really well shot in place. There are some scenes, especially regarding fog and the water reflections.
Yeah,
absolutely incredible. The cinematography is top notch. I do think this is often regarded as one of the most influential British films.
It is, yeah. It's why I watched it when I did all those years ago, because I was very aware of how well regarded it was. This
was my first time, and I'd have to admit I wasn't entirely satisfied when I finished it.
All right, this is what we're going to chat about today, because we have opinions on this film.
I do think when I watch it, I know this is a good movie. Just I've got a few issues. So once they've moved to Venice, they come in touch with 2 elderly sisters.
Yeah.
One of which is blind and is a psychic, and says that you can see their daughter in between them try to say something to her dad.
Yeah.
She even says that he has the gift. He could see, kind of the best way to describe it is The Shining.
Yeah. Second sight.
but he either doesn't know that he has it or doesn't want to use it.
Well, that's why the child was trying to talk to him. He has the gift, even if he doesn't know it, even if he's resisting it.
And apparently she is warning him that he's going to have an accident in Venice.
Something bad is going to happen.
Something bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
And Laura takes kind of solace in knowing that she's
Heard their daughter was around. Yeah.
Like, they're not religious people, but she takes comfort in it. How healthy that is doesn't really matter, because it's something for her to.
She's now got
something for her to latch onto it.
Exactly.
John even says, she's been different since that moment. She's been like she was before, and I think it's just having that little bit of hope. Whereas he's thrown himself into his work, and it's ironic that an architect who literally builds things and repairs things for a living can't repair his family. It is broken. Yeah. In a way that can never truly
the loss
be
of
fixed.
a child.
There's so many moments of him like for mosaics, like analyzing, making sure the color's right. But it's like, when you rebuild something, is it ever truly the same as what it was?
Yeah, exactly.
Before.
Exactly.
So I quite like that for his character. And he's so starkly against
the supernatural. Anything about it. Laura is much more open-minded, and I think just generally speaking, like a lot more emotional. Emotionally, she's an emotional thinker and an emotional feeler, whereas John is like, I wouldn't say like he's a typical like macho man from the 70s, but he's more traditionally kind of close-minded, internalizing a lot of grief. Yeah.
Mysterious things kind of do start happening. You start seeing things that you can't really explain. Their son then has an accident that means that Laura needs to leave Venice, needs to go and see him.
Yeah.
And that's really where the film kind of starts
taking a bit of
a turn. And spoilers for the ending. John is killed at the end.
Yeah.
And we will get to that. But the film is very choppily edited, and I know that's intentional. Sometimes that was a bit off-putting, and I did kind of clock it quite early on what the whole point of it was and the twist. But before we get into all of that, this film has a very gratuitous sex scene for 1973.
It does. It does.
And that was the first day they met. They did that scene.
Oh my god.
God, you're going to be like that afterwards.
I can't even imagine. Yeah, so Julie Christie, Donald Sutherland, they met that morning. And Nicolas Roeg, who I believe was more of a cinematographer than he was a director at this point.
Yeah, which I can tell because, like I said, this film looks...
The camera is everything in the yeah.
Yeah. Venice is a character.
Yeah.
Which, if you film in Venice and you don't make Venice a character and part of the story...
What are you doing?
You know what? Even though we've been there, I'd never considered... Like, as soon as like an ambulance turns up and it's a boat, I'm like, of course.
Yeah.
Of course they've got water ambulances.
Well, I sorry, like, a little bit of a tangent. I will go back to my point, but I always just, I'm kind of staggered at how films are actually made in Venice because, yeah, like, as stunningly beautiful as it is, it's like, transporting equipment around is not an easy feat.
Well, we didn't hear a car for 2 days.
No.
Which is crazy.
Which is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
But yeah. Anyway, sorry, so yeah, the sex scene. This very famous, very notorious sex scene.
Sex scene.
I cannot imagine what it must be like. I mean, I'm not an actress, but to have to do like a fairly graphic sex scene, fairly like quite realistic with a man that I'd only met maybe a few hours before, I can't even get my head around that. I truly can't. And like I know, or I like to think it was, a very close set. It was maybe just
I think it was a close set, yeah.
And the sound guy and wherever else, like only,
God, can you imagine being the sound guy during that type of scene? Lots of like...
Oh, stop. But the thing is, right, and I talk about my feelings about the movie in a minute, but I really like the sex scene because it's a very intimate moment, obviously, between these two people. I really love the moment leading up to the sex scene where it's Julie Christie and it's Donald Sutherland just like chilling in their hotel room. She's in the bath. She's full frontal in the bath. Donald Sutherland is also full frontal. He's at the sink. He's like brushing his teeth, or so it's just something really normal. And there was just something really lovely about seeing these two actors be very kind of vulnerable like that and play out that, very typical man and wife moment. It's like, of course you're going to be bollock naked in front of your wife. Like you're going to be walking around your hotel naked. And I really like that. And then we get to the sex scene, which was intimate. But then the fucking editing comes in, and it all like those really nice intimate sequences interspersed with like lots of other random shit, and it's cutting between them having sex and then him getting dressed afterwards and then her getting dressed afterwards, and I don't understand why that choice was made.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why a lot of choices in this film was made. But otherwise, I did think the sex scene was beautiful.
Yeah. Interestingly, just jumping on your point there about like the very normal moments, like brushing your teeth, like when you're not dressed, or being in the bathroom when your partner's in the bath. There's actually studies come out recently that, like Gen Z in particular, apparently want less gratuitous sex scenes in films, mainly because it's like so readily available for them online. They want to see more like real life relationship things. And you know, like, yeah, I get it. A lot of times film and TV don't show, it's like when you show someone wake up in the morning and they look fabulous. Like it's not realistic. So some things like brushing your teeth in the nude while your wife's having a bath, it's very real. It's something that a lot of people can relate to. It's
of course
normal.
It's completely normal.
So I like it when we manage to actually look into a realistic relationship. And obviously this whole film is about like them dealing with this very, very tragic
event
loss in very, very different ways. And in a lot of ways, they do kind of just run away from their problem.
In a way, yeah.
In my mind, like they abandon their other child and just run off to this beautiful city.
Yeah.
Which ultimately ends up being their undoing.
Yeah. Yes. All right. So let's rewind the clock. So I first watched this movie. I don't even know how old I was. It was many, many years ago, probably like 15, 16 years ago. I was probably a bit too young. And this kind of leads into it because my first gut reaction when I first watched this was I didn't like it. I did not care for this movie at all. I thought the editing was just too disjointed and too fragmented. It was too distracting for me to properly like invest in the story. I remember even then thinking like the acting is like a little weird and the dialogue is a little weird. And I don't know, it didn't feel like it just didn't feel like a proper movie in my like eyes when I was younger. So I just didn't like it, and I was really disappointed because I really wanted to. I'd heard so much about this, really well-regarded British horror film. And then I was like, well, that's fucking overrated as hell. And then obviously went to Venice, and I had this idea, like, it's probably time to revisit it, and you'd never watched it before. So we watched it fairly recently, and I have to say, my feelings are still kind of the same. It's like, I have a bit more of an appreciation for it, because, like, admittedly, when I was younger, I didn't really have a lot of other experience with, like, weirdly edited films, and, films that are more about representation and symbolism than they are about, like, telling a story in a traditionally kind of linear way. Whereas this film in a way has echoes of Giallo, and I love Giallo movies now, which again is not something I used to like back in the day. I've warmed to them, and I have a bit more of an appreciation for like their clunky disjointedness. But there's just something about this movie that I can't get behind, and I still find the editing just too much of a distraction to fully invest in it.
I did read somewhere that this is a film that apparently does require multiple viewings. I can understand it, considering there are a lot of scenes that are on purposely out of sequence.
Yes.
That might not be obvious on first viewing. So the big twister moment for me is when Laura has gone back. He literally puts her on the water taxi.
Yeah.
And then he's like on a water taxi of his own, and he sees her on like a funeral boat with
the two sisters. Yeah.
Laura! And he's like,
he yells after her.
He yells after Laura. Laura. All I was thinking was, Adrian! So it's then him running through the streets of Venice. And honestly, Venice is hard to navigate at the best of times.
It's fucking impossible.
Yeah. So then he reports her as missing. He tries to go back to their place because Laura was there the other day, and he can't find it. And he generally thinks that they have manipulated her in some way.
Yeah.
So he even like going as far as to go to the police.
Yeah. Yeah, he does.
And this is where the disjointedness really got me, because they do get arrested.
The two
sisters, and he rings his son's school, and Laura's there. And he's like, oh, but I saw you. He says, oh, it's all right, Joe, it's all right. Like, their conversation just didn't match up on the phone. Like,
Yeah.
it was so...
It's...
She just kept saying, oh, it's all right, I'm coming back to it. And he's like, no, I saw you here.
It's...
And at no point... It's almost like they had two different scripts for what the other person was going to be saying back.
Yeah.
And that really threw me.
Laura, I thought I saw you here today. I thought I saw you with the two sisters, with the two women. I was certain. I swore it.
Darling, it's all right. Don't worry, sweetheart.
After what the psychic had said about him having the gift, he just might not understand it. I was like, he has just seen his own view. That's his. I'm like, that's his.
It's a premonition.
That's a premonition right there. He just doesn't understand it. Which I think in 73, that was probably quite a mind-boggling thing.
Yeah.
You see, when I'm watching for the first time, I don't think I said it to you. In my head, I was like, that's his.
Yeah.
And other things throughout the film then properly cemented that for me. And I do actually quite like it. As far as the twist goes, like having a character, like the supernatural almost isn't really that obvious.
No.
And there is a lot open to interpretation. And I think we're seeing it through John's eyes as an unreliable narrator because he doesn't understand what's happening to him. He thinks what he's seeing is real. So when he sees like what looks like a little girl in a red coat, it looks like his daughter.
Yeah.
Now for me, the biggest hint that it's not his daughter, even though considering we've had characters that have said they've seen his daughter around him, he could be fighting that in his mind saying, no, I don't believe in this, but I'm seeing something with my real eyes. The coat is different.
Yeah.
It's not a raincoat, it's felt.
Yeah.
So it looks very similar, but it's not. And that for me was the biggest clue that it's not his daughter, it's not a ghost.
Yeah.
And that backed up with the funeral barge scene, kind of put the plot in. I was like, all right, I know what's going on.
Yeah. To your point earlier about that phone call that they have where is he like is it the police station or like an embassy or something? I don't know where it works. But when he finally calls Laura after, having frantically been trying to track her down, and he's caused all this ruckus getting these two elderly sisters arrested and whatnot. And
something which modern days with mobile phones just wouldn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it wouldn't happen at all.
But that scene it's a really good example of, not only is the editing very disjointed, but the dialogue, even the dialogue between these two characters, it just doesn't ring true. Because I wrote it down, specifically the line. So he says, Laura, I could have sworn I saw you today. And she replies, John, it's all right, darling. Everything's fine. And it's like, I know you just said it, but it's like, that is not what you say in response to what your husband has just leveled at you. Like, surely a more realistic response would be,
well, it wasn't me.
What the fuck are you talking about? Of course I'm in England. You put me on a plane. Like, of course I'm in England. I'm coming back. But it's just, literally like having two separate conversations. And there's moments like that throughout the movie with them where it's like the dialogue just doesn't feel like a natural back and forth between two people. And it must have been a very deliberate choice from the...
I've just had a thought. When they first get a phone call from the boarding school, there is a bit of a delay, isn't there? When they're just both saying hello, and eventually it catches up. So maybe it was a problem with the line. Maybe. Again, it's not explicit in the movie, explicitly said in the movie, but maybe that's what caused the disjointness on that phone call. I can't excuse other scenes, but maybe it was just...
all right, maybe.
Back in the 70s phone lines, maybe it was a delay.
Maybe.
And it was easier to say, it's all right, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
Like, not really being able to have a conversation because of a delay.
It's possible.
And anyone born in the 70s, if you're bringing someone overseas, is that a thing?
There is generally like quite a bit of confusing direction all around, though. I mean, again, not just the editing, but I mean, we pointed out like sometimes there are whole scenes that transpire in Italian that aren't subtitled, and usually, like if scenes like that happen,
there could be versions of the films that are subtitled,
maybe, but like sometimes there are scenes like that exist in foreign films, like where, okay, the dialogue is not in English, but it's easy to infer by the actions or the context of the scene what is going on. Like, you can put two and two together. There are so many scenes in this film. Oh, I have no idea what they're talking about here.
Also, the inspector that he goes to couldn't speak a lick of English, could he?
No, he couldn't.
So he was just reading off the cue cards, and it gave him this really, sinister
Yeah.
I think his performance, considering he doesn't
was
know
good.
what he's saying, he
It
was
was good.
very good.
It
And
was
I
a bit
think,
weird for Donald Sutherland as well. Very
Yes.
good English as well, too.
yeah, he spoke it very
Yeah.
well. And one scene I also really like, because I see they have the prediction that something bad is going to happen to him in Venice. He does have an accident in the church.
Oh, he does.
He goes
yeah.
up the scaffolding and onto like a very rickety platform, like it's held up by a rope, so he can check these mosaic tiles to check they match the old ones. And it falls.
Oh, it does.
And the stunt work, everything about this scene
Brilliant.
is brilliant. My heart was in my throat
Yeah.
through the entirety. I'm probably thinking, like, I know this movie's longer than this, so he's probably nothing's going to happen
Yeah.
now. But it was just
Very well done.
very, 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 very well done. I'm
Yeah.
assuming, I was trying to look at it, I'm like, where's the ropes? And I'm assuming they must have had some harness underneath his like
Yeah.
suit jacket. And it probably wasn't Donald Sutherland for most of it.
No.
And it's seeing the several attempts to try and help him. Like, it's not an easy way to get him down from these
No.
rope. It was very, very well done and kind of like puts you on edge then for the rest of the movie.
It was very frantic.
Like I said, there is so many scenes in this that I think this is masterful.
Mm.
There's just a lot of the in-between moments. I
Yeah.
don't know if I probably will revisit this in a few years' time just to see if it sits better with me.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that both of us didn't think was particularly strong in the movie either was the element of the serial killer let
Yes.
loose in Venice.
We see one body,
We only see one body being pulled from the canal.
yeah,
And
which
I
is
think-
still like it's a hard scene to watch.
Prior to that, there was just like a throwaway reference of like, oh, there's a killer. There's a killer on the loose.
Yeah.
And I think that well, there is a scene, isn't there, at night time where him and Julie Christie are wandering around and they get a bit lost on a bridge and then they hear a scream.
Yeah.
And that's when he gets the first glance of the red
Yeah.
coat.
You notice that there's
Running
elements
away.
of
But-
red throughout like the movie and it kind
Yes.
of increases as the film goes on.
Yeah, it gets stronger, I think. But otherwise, the film doesn't really like cement this idea in the audience's mind of there's a serial killer
Yeah.
on the loose in Venice.
When I started thinking about it, a lot of the scenes when he's like asking for help and he's like running down the streets and you see a lot of people like peering out windows looking at him. When you put it in context of the serial killer, I was like, they see this like really tall, loud man, Englishman running
Yeah.
around the streets, a stranger.
Yeah,
They probably thought he was the serial killer.
yeah. He was this very tall, shouty man that's just wandering around Venice.
So yeah, I would have preferred a bit more. I don't know how much of it's included in the original story.
No.
Should we talk about the ending?
Oh, yeah.
When essentially, like, again, it's almost like he has a moment where he's like, the child in the red coat is so close. He's like,
Well,
I've got you.
he's chasing after it.
Yeah.
Really,
It's when he's like, he's brought the sisters
tracks
home
down.
from
from
prison.
prison, yeah. Who are just two very innocent women. Like, there's nothing
Yeah.
sinister about them at all.
And he leaves to go get Laura because she's coming back. The police station bring Laura to them because that's where he
Yeah.
was. And the woman starts having a premonition. She's like, you need to go get him. You need to go get him now. So it's like they just miss each other. And she knows in this moment that he is going to die.
Yeah.
One of the nicest film scenes in the whole movie. There's whole sequence, like the lighting, the reflections, the fog. Everything just works really well. And it's almost weirdly like Blair Witchy. He gets into this room, which is stood in the corner.
Yeah.
He's like, "Go on, I'm
Hooded
afraid."
figure.
I don't think he truly believes it's his daughter,
No.
but I think he needs to know because he says, "I'm a friend,"
Probably thinks at the very least this is a child.
Yeah.
That's in
and it's
peril.
not. It actually, like, again for 73 was probably quite shocking. Turns around and it's a woman, a
Yeah.
dwarf woman, and then just hatches him in the neck
Yeah.
and thick blood, and
Like,
he's like convulsing on the floor.
Yeah. And then it oozes down in the church where he's tracked this killer down.
Yeah.
Oh, it's pretty it's very jarring.
The killer doesn't get caught.
No.
I'm not saying an issue I have with a lot of films is when films assume we can't work stuff out on them.
Yeah.
An element I do really like about this is that a lot of it just isn't told
No.
to us and it's open to
No context.
interpretations. Like it's a snippet
Yeah.
in a wider, like these two characters are just a small part of a wider story
Yeah.
of a serial killer going on
Yeah.
in Venice. But John basically puts himself in harm's way.
Yeah.
He's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, essentially, yes, yeah. But yeah, there's something to that of the serial killer subplot almost doesn't really matter to what our main characters are going through because there's not really any point across the movie where the two intersect until
Yeah. Isn't it meant to be like,
that final moment.
you always feel like the main character's in a story, but in real life, there's always other stories going on around you.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I interpreted that.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
We'd like to shout out our groovy members. We appreciate everything you do for this channel and helping us grow. You guys are awesome.
Do you think, because there are scenes where, and also the killer, we don't come to know her name. I think in the credits, she definitely doesn't have one. So we literally know nothing about this killer. We don't know who, like,
So this killer's been chased down and cornered, and she's just
right, no. Yeah. And how she does it, like, with this, like, little smile as well. It's very,
also, from
very
what I
creepy.
gathered, all of her victims prior to this have been women.
Well, this is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So, like, he doesn't fit the mold. But there are moments throughout the film where, obviously, that scene where there's a scream and Donald kind of goes to investigate and he sees a glimpse of something red running away. There's scenes during the daytime where he's wandering around Venice and I think he's a bit lost and he's trying to get his bearings, and then we see another, like, hint of red. So has the killer tracked him down?
Or,
Has the killer become aware of this guy, thinking, oh, this is twice now I've seen him?
or did he even actually see the red coat, or is he having a vision from the future? Again, this is the stuff it's jarring to watch, but it's interesting to think about.
Yeah.
That's why I think eventually I will benefit from a second viewing, because there will be scenes that might have not made sense to me out of context, which now might.
Yeah.
Obviously, after he's dead, we then get the full funeral barge.
Yeah.
See, it's like, that's obviously the real, oh, he saw his own funeral.
He saw his own.
He's got the shining.
He does. Good shine. I don't think we're selling this movie a lot, but we don't need to. This film is very well regarded on its own. It doesn't need Sam and David's approval, you know.
No, we checked out something purely based on its location.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate why people like it. But it also falls in that category of a very artsy film that sometimes I just struggle to watch.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's lots of things I really enjoyed about the production of this film. And we've had lots of really good discussions after watching the film.
We have.
But if people came over and were like, oh, can we watch this film? I'd be like, oh, I don't know if I'm in the mood.
Yeah.
It's not an easy, casual watch.
Interesting it's never been remade.
I don't even know how you, like...
I think you could do a remake of this. I don't...
Technically, Martin Scorsese remade a bit of it.
Oh, you did?
Listen, that opening scene is so...
Oh, yeah. Specifically, we're talking about that's in Shutter Island, where Leo dives into the lake or the pond, you know, goes outside his house to try and save his children, and he goes for his little girl, I think, first. And, like, you could literally do, like, shot for shot. It's so similar.
You know what I really like about the scene in this movie? It's dirty. Like, in Scorsese, he comes out wet, but he's on the grass, and he doesn't really get, like...
They're not muddy.
This one's like
seaweed and stuff like it, not weed,
the
like
seaweed,
weeds.
his hair's a mess. It's all over his face. He's covered in mud when he gets onto the grass. The raw is the best way I'd describe that scene. And there's even a white horse. It's like before she goes into like the lake, and it's like, what does the white horse mean?
Yeah, and there's so much symbolism.
Horse mean? Why did they write in a second child?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I know they do. Just kind of forget about him.
This is meant to be like the hints early on that someone took, because in one of the photos you can see a little girl in the red and spill something on it, and almost like blood coming from. He instinctively knows that something has happened. He doesn't need to be told. He kind of gets up and goes out instinctively.
Goes.
So the hints are there very early on that he has some sort of sense. He can't control it. He doesn't understand it. It's more like he has a feeling.
Yeah.
And always his feeling comes too late, or he doesn't understand it like that. But he gets the feeling right as she's dying. When he gets his feeling and sees his own funeral, he doesn't understand it.
No, he can't make sense of it.
Yeah. And it's because he doesn't eat. Well, again, it's not really. How would you know? Yeah. Something like that.
No, it makes me think that he's not aware he has this gift.
Because Laura does tell him that, she says you have the gift, and he probably just thinks that con artists.
Oh yeah, of course he will, like exploiting his wife's grief, and or just like two like little old mad ladies living in Venice. He's, doesn't give him time of day, does he?
No.
I really like Donald Sutherland's performance in the movie.
I mean, it's Donald Sutherland, isn't it?
He's great.
He's class.
Just very kind of like natural actor, I think. The weird thing is, like, going back to the dynamic between him and his wife, as weird as I think the dialogue is sometimes, and there is a bit of like a disconnect there, I never get the impression that this is gonna end badly. Like, I don't ever really think like, oh, these two have fallen out of love with each other.
No.
These two, like, they're not gonna go all the way here. I actually feel like they would stick together.
Someone's obviously different.
Yeah.
Because of the
Of course.
tragic circumstances, but they're trying.
They are, yeah. And I think they probably would have got there. It's a shame.
Yeah, it's like, would she be okay after this?
I mean, she's lost her daughter and now she's lost her husband.
Yeah.
Probably in the same year.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it is meant to be within a year
Yeah.
that's happened.
I mean, I do sort of... I mean, the fact that the sisters are clearly invited to the funeral, I think that she's probably going to, like, latch onto them more than ever now.
Yeah. Do you have any more notes on this one?
I don't really, to be honest. It's one of those movies I really wish I could love it, because there is enough there for me to keep it, interesting. It's just the editing. I just can't. I just can't.
I hope it doesn't sound like we've shit all over this movie. I said there's a lot that's really good in it, and we can understand why people like it and why it's so...
Can see how influential it is. Also, Donald Sutherland really enjoyed working with the director, so much so that apparently he named one of his children after Nicolas Roeg. He called his son Roeg. So
they're the stories that I love. I know this filmed over Christmas in Venice as well, so that was cool.
Yeah.
Let us know. I'd say go check it out if you're interested in like all the films. Like, you also got to bear in mind, like, we are not the target audience for this film.
No.
This film's 51 years old now.
Yeah.
But it's weird that I can watch other films from the 70s, like Black Christmas, for example, and I'm in it.
Yeah.
I'm so in it. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, rough around the edges, but I'm in it. This one, there's just something about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's fine. Sometimes you just don't enjoy a movie.
Yeah. And
even if there's stuff that you like in it. That's
fine. This is one of those, it's like, it's an unpopular opinion, but we're not the biggest fans of this one. And that's not to say that we don't have patience or appreciation for, like, movies that are similar to this, in that, like disjointed editing, or, like, very experimental and very heavy on its themes. That's not to say that's all. It's just this particular film. Yeah, we just... There's a few problems that we have with it.
If you've seen it, let us know what you think of it.
Yeah, if you've been to Venice, let us know what you thought of Venice.
Give us a few more Venice-themed movies. I've only got like 2 or 3. Like, I don't know if I can convince you to watch The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen again.
Not too soon.
That really shows an example of my film taste, doesn't it?
No.
So, thanks a lot, guys, and we will see you next week.